Adrian Jewel. She was born on November 4th, 2021. She was super chubby, had super big cheeks.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming and joining me in our home today to tell the story of Adrian. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule and being here with us.
Of course.
Yeah, we're so excited. My husband, Lee, already has talked to your husband and they had a wonderful time talking about your daughter as well. So I'm just looking forward to it. I've been talking to Lee about it. I'm excited to actually hear her side of the story and everything.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you guys are from, what your family looks like.
So I'm Rebecca. Me and my family, we're from Utah. My husband and I, we've been married for how long have we been married for? 6 years. 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got our oldest son. His name's Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5, and then Adrian. She was our second child, and she'd be 2 in November.
Okay.
And then we just had Sylvie, our third. She's 2 months old.
Oh man, yeah. We were trying to. I'm so impressed that you are in here talking about Adrian just having had a baby 2 months ago.
Oh my God.
I know that has not been an easy path for you as well. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
And what do you guys like to do as a family? Are there things, hobbies and that type of thing that you guys like to do?
We like being outside. I think that's more like my husband's hobby and it's kind of just rubbed off on me. And
Yeah.
Harrison really likes to be outside too. So when we have the opportunity to, we like going to Southern Utah.
Oh,
My son's super into volcanoes. And
Really?
there's like cinder cones down by
There
St.
are.
George. Yeah. So we're hoping to make that kind of like a regular trip.
Super fun.
He loves it.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Going to be a geologist. I mean,
I know.
No big deal.
My parents are convinced that he's going to be a volcanologist.
Which would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
How fun. Well, okay. So, and then what do you guys, so you are a stay-at-home mom with your kids, and I know that's a lot. So that is more than a full-time job. So wonderful. And so tell me a little bit about your kind of family planning. So you had Harrison, you guys were trucking along, and did you guys just feel like it was Adrian planned? Was that something that you guys were hoping to add to your family?
Yes, she was planned. And it's fun. Our first, Harrison, he wasn't planned. He came as a little bit of a surprise.
Oh, okay.
But so I think we were kind of thrown into parenthood earlier than we wanted to.
Right.
But we wouldn't change it at all. But so he was a surprise. But then with Adrian, she was very much planned, very much like we were so excited and we're just anticipating her coming. And I was teaching. I used to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
I only taught for 1 year before, I was teaching the year that we decided that we wanted to have Adrian.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to try teaching and taking care of 2 little kids at the same time.
Right.
So I finished the school year pregnant with Adrian.
Okay.
And then,
but you knew you were not coming back the fall. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't go back in the fall.
Okay.
But yeah, we planned for her, and we were super excited when we found out that she was a girl. We were really set on we wanted 1 boy and 1 girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no issues getting pregnant or anything. So.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I know that's such a huge struggle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're really lucky in that regard that we haven't ever had a problem with getting pregnant.
Yeah.
Which I think is why it came. I mean, I don't know. It was a huge shock that we lost her because I had never had a miscarriage. We had never struggled.
Right.
I know that doesn't necessarily mean that getting the struggle of getting pregnant doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be, having miscarriages and stillbirths, but it just definitely wasn't on our radar at all because
everything just kind of went smoothly.
Everything went exactly the way that we wanted it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's not on your radar, it just is so, it's so shocking. It's so shocking.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys got pregnant, and that was during the last bit of your working career at the time anyway.
Yeah.
And you guys found out. How did you tell Parker, your husband?
It was pretty, I just kept, I don't know, he was really in the loop. I'm like, I'm going to go get a pregnancy test.
Okay.
And so it was just, I didn't tell him any exciting way. I literally went into the bathroom, peed on the stick, and then waited in there and came back out. I was like, it's positive. And then we celebrated.
Super exciting.
I know some people do the really cute,
they do. They
reveals.
Go all out. Yeah.
I'm not that way. I can't do that with gender reveals or pregnancy reveals. I don't have the energy to.
Yeah. Love it.
I'll just announce
Real
it.
talk.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So then you found out you were pregnant. And so did you end up going in for your first appointment around 8 or 9 weeks? It's usually around that time, it seems like.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything looked okay?
Everything was good. Yeah.
Okay.
The entire pregnancy. There was never any sign of anything wrong.
Really?
No issues. No. Nothing.
That is okay. So then tell me a little bit about your anatomy scan then, right? That's around 20 weeks. Everything checked out okay.
Yeah, everything was great there too. And we found out that she was a girl. Again, we don't do the gender reveals at all. So it was
you just wanted to know.
We just wanted to be told right there and then. So they told us we were having a girl, we're crying because we're so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no problem. She didn't have any issues at all. And
looked good.
I never had a reason to feel nervous for that.
Really?
And maybe we can talk about it later, but with this third pregnancy that I had after Adrian, it was a very different experience of I understand now why some people go into the anatomy scan feeling really nervous because after losing Adrian, I felt a lot more anxious. But
Gotcha.
with Adrian's pregnancy, we had no reason.
Yeah, because probably Harrison's pregnancy was fine as well.
Yeah, he was. Everything went well with his. Everything went well with Adrian's, and up to the very end.
Yeah. When you guys found out that she was going to be a girl, that she was a girl, what did you guys start thinking of names, or did you already have kind of a running list?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. We had a list of girl names that we had thought of back when we were pregnant with Harrison.
Okay.
And I don't know if Adrian was ever on the list or not, but I know that we went through that list and kind of thought we're trying to narrow it down, but we're kind of nerds when it comes to favorite movies, pop culture a little bit.
Yeah.
And so Harrison's name actually comes from Harrison Ford.
Oh,
I think Harrison Ford is awesome.
He is a great actor.
Yeah. I think in his old age, he's so funny, so cranky.
Yeah, he is such a crotchety old man.
I don't know why, but I love it. And so Harrison, I mean, maybe not necessarily named after Harrison Ford, but definitely inspired.
Really liked that name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when we thought of Adrian's name, that came from the Rocky movies.
I was wondering about that because I was like, Adrian is, I was going to say Adrian.
I love the Rocky movies. Growing up, in high school especially, I had a long kick where I just was obsessed with them. And I'm like, Mom, I need to watch every single one of them.
No way.
She gave me the set of the first 4, I think, for Christmas one year. I was I still am.
Yes.
But it definitely started in high school.
Oh, that is so crazy and it's fun. I mean, so you guys are movie buffs too. It sounds like you guys really like watching movies. And Rocky is an older movie, so I just think that's so funny you stumbled upon it. Or
yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I'm sure Rocky was on TV all the time. And I think I just saw the first one and I was like, wow.
That was inspiring.
This is so amazing. I don't even like sports movies.
Yeah.
I'm not even a boxing fan, but the Rocky movies,
you're like, I'm
a huge fan. Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, so Adrian is the first name. And then I think Jewel is a beautiful name.
Yeah. Jewel came from, it's the maiden name of one of my ancestors.
Oh.
So she was pioneers that came across the country. And her name was Anne Jewel.
Oh, that is a beautiful name.
Yeah. And so she came across the country with 7 kids, and her husband had passed away before they had like made the journey.
Oh man.
So she's just this amazing, strong woman, like in
That
my family
was
history.
also very inspiring
Yeah,
too.
very inspiring. And so, yeah, we had to have that as her middle name.
I think they're beautiful. It just is a beautiful name all together.
I think so.
Okay, so you had fun names. Did you tell Harrison? Was he aware of what was going on? Because he's still pretty little.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he was 2 when like 2.5 when we got pregnant with her. By the time we lost her, he was 3.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the autism spectrum, and so there's some things that like he's just a little bit slower at comprehending.
Yes.
And so at the time, like it really didn't like sink in at all.
Gotcha.
But he definitely knew, like when we lost her,
Mm-hmm.
he definitely knew that something was up, and maybe he couldn't like exactly pinpoint it, or like he wasn't at an age yet where we could like explain things to him and he wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could feel just like the difference in the atmosphere in our home after we lost her, but I don't think he was ever like
Understood.
anticipating her.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So you guys are going along and feeling good.
Yeah.
Any morning sickness or?
I am super lucky. I don't get morning sickness.
Oh, yeah, you are super lucky.
I know. I don't get that at all. I had like really bad sciatica with my first pregnancy.
Okay.
And then it kind of came and went when I was pregnant with Adrian, but I don't feel like I can complain that much. I mean, at the time I complained a lot. But now that I realize, like, I am super lucky because I don't get sick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the regular aches and pains of pregnancy. Just that isn't fun, but
yeah. But in general was fairly decent.
Yeah.
Sounds like. Great. That's nice.
I know.
And as you were getting a little bit, okay, so she was born in November. So you guys are getting closer. So like as you get closer to her due date, how all of your appointments are checking out? Were you doing any kind of stress tests to make sure heart rate was looking good and all that jazz?
No, we didn't. Yeah, I mean, she never gave us any indication that anything was ever off.
Mm-hmm.
There was never anything that came up that would have alerted us. And so I never did stress tests. Every appointment that I had, she was always looking good.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you get closer to the end and you have an appointment like every week,
Yes, it's more frequent. Yeah, for sure.
And so, I just think about the week previous to my last appointment, because it was at my last appointment that we found out that she had passed. So I just think about like the appointment that I had the week previous, how everything was fine.
Everything
like
was good.
and then it's just crazy. Like within that
week,
we don't really know what happened.
Yeah. I always get curious. Were you kind of tracking any of her movements, any like kind of kick counting, that type of thing?
Yeah. So with my first, I never felt the need to even count his kicks at all. He was moving the entire time.
Okay. So was super active.
Harrison was super active. And so with Adrian's pregnancy, I kind of just, like, I wasn't in the habit of counting kicks. But she moved a lot too.
Okay.
And then that last week, before we found out that she had passed, she did slow down with her movement. And, this is something that, I've had like a couple of years now to like kind of come to terms and like process and and really realize that there probably wasn't anything that I could have done. But, as it was fresh, I just I kept thinking about how I wish I would have been more alert to her decreased movement. And at the time, I kind of assumed that it was just because she had gotten bigger. And so that's what people had told me.
That's what people say.
Your baby gets bigger, they slow down with moving. And again, that wasn't something that I had experienced with Harrison. Harrison was super tiny when he was born. He was 5 pounds, 4 ounces.
Okay.
So he never ran out of room. Like we went to the very end of the pregnancy and he
still had
super
plenty.
active.
Okay.
Yeah. And so with Adrian, I thought, well, I think that she is bigger. So this must be, she's running out of room and slowing down with moving. And so that's kind of what I thought. But like we had made it to, I think it was Halloween where I like that whole day, I was like, wow, I don't think that I've felt her move at all today. And it like that was kind of what set off the alarms for me
Okay.
a little bit. But like I sat down, I ate some dinner, and I felt a little bit of movement. So I'm like, okay, like she's there, she's good. Um, and then that's how the next few days after that went. And I just was so oblivious to like the world of stillbirth, and it was not something that had ever like touched anybody that I knew or that I was close to, and
Right.
it wasn't on my radar at all. And so, you know, I wish, of course, I wish that I could go back and like scream at myself and say, like, go to your doctor, like
Yeah.
you notice the decreased movement, like go see him. But I didn't.
So on Halloween, you noticed the decreased movement, but you just kind of, that's what you do. You kind of chalk it up
Mhm.
to not having enough space.
Yeah.
But then you kind of maybe felt her in the evening.
Mhm.
Okay, so then after that, what happened after that? Like the next day?
The next few days were pretty similar where like I would feel her move like a little bit here and there.
Hmm.
Um and I just kind of thought I didn't think much of it. And at the time we were going through, I mean, everybody has stuff going on
Yeah.
all the time. We were going through a lot of stuff with because I mentioned that my son is on the autism spectrum.
Right.
And so at the time he wasn't diagnosed, but I was like, it was like that whole week I was also trying to set up things to get him evaluated with the
Gotcha.
school district. And it wasn't even being evaluated for autism. It was just like I was
Maybe
saying like,
speech
I'm like,
and
he's
yeah.
delayed and I need help. And it was
Yes.
this whole like I was doing a lot of stuff with pediatricians and with the school district. And so I like my mind was very much pulled away from
Mhm. Just paying attention,
yeah.
or yeah, being still. Because those we have done a number of like tests for our son too, just because he has some like a speech impediment.
Mhm.
So you're like, yeah, it does take
It takes
a
a lot
lot.
out of you.
Yep, there's a lot of phone calls. There's a lot of sitting on the phone waiting for people
Uh-huh.
to pick up,
And a lot
and
of stress
yeah,
where like
to make sure that you get into the right person.
mhm.
And so yes, I can understand that being something that would take your attention away
Yeah.
from kind of what's happening. And can you remind me again what week this is in your pregnancy?
Um this would have been my 38th week.
Okay.
Yeah. She was like 38 weeks and 5 days, I think,
Okay. So
when
you are definitely getting closer, and
yeah.
you are going in weekly, and if not even more than that, were you going in
I think I was just going weekly.
weekly?
Yeah.
Okay. Because everything was looking good. I
Yeah.
mean, everything was fine. Okay. So really, the next few days were similar to that of Halloween.
Yeah.
So then you go in for your 39th week
Mhm.
appointment.
Yeah.
And was Parker going with you to those
No,
appointments
he
at all?
wasn't.
Okay.
And that's something that we'll always be sad about.
Yeah.
I mean, getting the news at that appointment was super hard, like by
Oh, by
myself,
yourself.
and he
Yeah.
wasn't. And it was super hard for him to like
Yeah.
have to hear it at work and to, he felt devastated that he wasn't there with me. It was different this last pregnancy. He made sure that he was
He
there
was
at
there for
every
everything.
appointment. Yeah. No, but he didn't. He came to like the 20-week anatomy scan.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just me.
Yeah. And I guess that's pretty typical, right?
Yeah,
I mean, a
right.
lot of people for the first one, maybe yes. And after that, it's like, oh, everything's fine. So,
Right. Yeah.
so when you went to that appointment, can you just tell me how that happened?
Well, I think part of this that like is important to note is that so this was November 4th and I had a scheduled C-section to have her on November 8th.
Oh,
So I had Harrison
uh-huh.
via C-section as well. He was an emergency
Okay.
C-section. So this time around with Adrian, like I talked with my doctor. We felt comfortable with doing a C-section again.
Okay.
It worked really well for me the first time. I recovered super well. And
Oh,
so
good.
I was like, you know what, let's just do it again. We felt good about it. So we had her scheduled for November 8th
Already.
C-section.
Okay.
So I go in November 4th. It's just 4 days before
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to have her and take her home. And like I remember going in and sitting on the table and the nurse, they always ask questions. And, she asked the question, have you been feeling
Yeah.
movement? Have you been feeling the baby kick? And I just said, well, no, like not as much, not as frequent. And like this is COVID. So like everybody's wearing their masks. So like I
Mm,
don't really get to see her face, but like I just see her eyes and she just like She just, like, looks at me with, like, this very, like, intense kind of, like, all of a sudden, like, she's super focused, and I don't know, like, I didn't think much of it until, like, she had me lay down, and as she's trying to search for the heartbeat, she can't find anything, and
Mm.
it's just silent, and I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling, like, the panic start to rise in my chest.
Right.
Like, I don't know, like, it felt like she was searching for minutes,
Yeah.
and at one point, I was feeling so nervous, and it was probably a really stupid thing to say, but I looked at her, and I'm just like, "Oh, that's probably not a good sign, right?" And she just was like, "Well, just wait here." Like, the nurse can't say anything,
Yeah, they
right?
can't.
So she just said, "Well, just wait here." She left, another nurse came in. She tried again for what felt like forever.
Mm.
Couldn't find a heartbeat. And so then she left, and then my doctor came in, and he came in with, the little
The little
portable ultrasound
ultrasound.
machine. Yeah. And then, yeah, he confirmed that, when I could see her, like, on the screen, I could see her little head. Yeah. But yeah, he confirmed that she didn't have a heart.
So sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Um, yeah, it is. That news is the worst that I just don't want to imagine being there by myself either. I'm so sorry.
I mean, luckily, I have an amazing OBGYN, and he was so great to just, he said, She yeah, her she's gone. I'm so sorry, and he looked at me and he said, "Rebecca, I'm so sorry. We were so close." He said, I'm so sorry." And the only thing that I could say back to him was just, I'm, like, sobbing, and the only thing I could say back was just, "Why? Why?" Like, and I think that was the only thing I said to him the whole time. Like, I was sobbing, and he was really great to just, he hugged me, and he sat there with me for as long as I needed. And I remember he talked to me. He said some probably, like, comforting things. I don't remember what he said,
Yeah.
but he was just there to be with me, and, I don't feel like what's crazy about, this whole memory that I have of finding out that she was gone was that day as I was waiting in the waiting room. It was, like, one of the busiest days I've ever seen, like, at my OBGYN. Usually, it's
Right.
not that crowded, but there were so many other women in the waiting room, and I had waited, like, maybe 30
Oh,
minutes to get in. So I had, like, had to wait for a long time, and I'm an anxious person sometimes, and I always want to, like, I'm always just aware of, like, not wanting to waste people's time, like,
yeah.
wanting other people to, like, have
Their chance
their
to
chance.
see the
Yeah,
doctor.
like, I don't
Yeah.
want other people running late, like, and so I remember just having a thought, like, there are so many people out there in the waiting room, and, like, they're already running so late, and my doctor is sitting here just so patient with me. He's not trying to rush me out. He's not trying to get me out because he clearly has so many other appointments. And, like, the most important thing to him in that moment was just to make sure that I had a chance to just sit and process. And
Yeah.
um his most important job at that moment was to just comfort me in the best way that he could.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know, that's something that has always really stuck out to me. Just like the crowded waiting room, but it didn't
It
matter
didn't
to
matter
him.
because
Yeah.
this is important. I was very kind to and generous to, yeah, because doctors they can be so busy.
Right.
Did you guys, did they just encourage you to call Parker right away? What was that
Yeah.
like? Or did he start talk? I'm assuming he probably waited to have Parker come or to talk
Well,
about what you guys were going to do.
a little bit. So after I'd sat for a while, he talked to me for a bit. He did say, like, he did have to bring up, how we were gonna go about delivering her, and he said that, likely we could deliver her the same day, but he was gonna have to go and make arrangements. And so he said,
Right.
how about I leave, and he needed to go call the hospital and set things up because I still decided I wanted to go ahead with the
Just a
C-section.
C-section. Okay.
So he left to call the hospital, and he said, "Call your husband, see if he can, get here, or just tell him what happened." And so I called Parker. I called him maybe 4 or 5 times, and he wouldn't answer. He was at work. He had Harrison with him that day at work.
Oh,
Typically, we have, like, family that can watch Harrison, like, if I have an appointment or something, but that day, we didn't have anybody to watch him, so Parker had just brought him into work with him.
yeah, and just he's gonna
Yeah.
hang out and yeah.
Yeah, and it not a big deal. But I had called Parker like 4 or 5 times. I just didn't know what to do, like, my mind is scrambled, and I so I sat in that room for a long time, like, I don't like, kept calling him, and I finally just, like, packed up my stuff and was like, "Okay, I'll just drive. I'll drive to his work and tell him because I don't know what else to do. I can't get a hold of him."
Yeah.
And so I come out of the doctor's room, and there's a nurse right there, and she offers to drive me to Parker's work, and I was like, "No, it's fine. I'll drive. I'll drive," as I'm, like, sobbing. So I rush out of the doctor's office, and, I get down to the parking lot, and as I'm getting into my car, Parker calls me back. So I'm in my car as I have to tell him that she's gone. She doesn't have a heartbeat. And just every time that we had to tell somebody, but of course, telling Parker was
Oh,
hard. I don't There's no, like, soft way to say it. Like,
yeah.
it's just, she's gone. She's died. And I remember Parker asking why, like, the same
Same
question that I
question.
asked, "Why?" And I said, "We don't know." Like, we'll probably find out later, but he was really, really choked up on the other end, and I just remember him saying, "There's no baby, like, she's gone," and then we both just, broke down and sobbed, and so he had to make arrangements to leave work, and we found family to watch Harrison for us. Um, just all of those moments feel like you're watching somebody else
Mhm.
live them.
Yeah. It's so out of body.
Yeah. And so we met each other at home.
Okay.
I drove home, he drove home, and then we waited for a call from the hospital to tell us when we could go in. And, you have to fast a little bit before you have a
Yeah.
C-section.
Mhm.
And so luckily, like, my appointment was that morning. And so we had a good window where,
That
like, I
it would be
already
fine.
hadn't eaten. So, we went to the hospital and delivered her later that evening.
Okay. So when you guys were together, and you still had Harrison when you guys met up at home,
Um,
or was he able
Parker had
to?
dropped Harrison off
Okay.
at, my brother and sister-in-law's house,
Okay.
and I think, Parker told them, like, "We just found out that we lost the baby.
Yeah.
Can you watch Harrison for us?" And that was, like, a shell shock for them too. They're just like,
Yes.
"Okay, like,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
okay, we'll watch Harrison." And,
Yeah.
hearing their story about it, like, later, they've said that they didn't really, like, know, like, they, like, didn't really, like, understand what Parker was telling them at first, and it,
Right.
like, didn't really sink in.
Yeah. Because it's once again it's not on
No.
anybody's radar.
No, and it's not something that our family has ever really
Experienced.
experienced at all. Like, brothers and sisters, like,
Right.
nobody's experienced a stillbirth before. So, just out of the blue.
Yeah. And so you guys were at home together. What did you guys do in that time while you were waiting for the call from the hospital to?
We, we realized that we probably needed to tell our parents. And so,
Okay.
you know, I I had already made arrangements for my mom to watch Harrison for us.
Okay.
No, she wasn't. She's supposed to watch him on the 8th when Adrian
When
was supposed to
yes.
come.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I was gonna need her help in watching Harrison. My brother and sister-in-law had him for just that short period of time, but I knew
Mhm.
that my mom was gonna need to come and help. And so Parker called my dad. I called my mom. My mom was at work at the time,
Mhm.
and, like, she knew that we were gonna have Adrian on the 8th, but we were also aware that Adrian could still come before that
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
And so, I had told my mom, like, just, keep your phone on you because she might come before, and so
Yeah.
I might have to ask you for help sooner. And so she's a paraeducator at an elementary school.
Okay.
And so she doesn't usually have her cell phone on her all the time. So I called her cell phone and she didn't answer. So I thought, oh my gosh, call
The
the
school,
front
yeah,
desk
the
of
front
the
desk.
school.
Mhm.
So I called the front desk of the school. And of course, it's the secretary of the school is somebody that I know. Like,
Because
this is in the town that I grew up in.
yeah.
And she was so friendly and nice. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, Rebecca, hi. Like, so good to hear you." And I'm just like this shell of like I like I'm dead. I feel like I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I probably wasn't that friendly, but I just said I need to talk to my mom. Can you like just like call down to the classroom and tell my mom, call me on her cell phone. And so then my mom calls me back and she's like, she sounds really excited.
Yeah,
Like
because
she was a little bit breathless.
yeah.
And I can hear her like, I think she was like packing stuff up or like she was moving around or something. And she thought that she was going to be coming
Right now.
because we were having
Mhm.
our baby that, she thought she was alive. And I just had to tell my mom that, we lost Adrian and her heart stopped beating and we don't know why. And, then to hear my mom break down and to start sobbing. And then my mom just, it's just you remember what every single person says. And so my mom's response was, "What happened?"
Yeah.
as she's like sobbing. And again, I have to tell her, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And so she just said, "Okay, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave. I'll come down. I'm just going to leave." So she came, her and my dad came to our house and my in-laws were out of town at the time,
Oh,
but we let them know.
okay. So all your
So
family, I just want to clarify that all of your
yeah.
family is pretty nearby to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
Okay.
we're all pretty close. My in-laws, they live in the same town that we do, and my parents live like 30 minutes away from
Okay.
us. So we're all pretty close and
Yeah.
they can all get to us pretty fast. So my parents came and then Harrison's still with his aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And it was just, my mom and dad, me and Parker, the four of us just like sitting in our living room. Like I feel like that time is kind of blurry. I think we just sat in silence. Like we didn't really know what to do or say. We're all just shell shocked.
Yeah.
I know for me, like I was just stuck with thinking about how it just felt like all of our plans had been like destroyed in an instant.
Yeah.
And like our whole life was just like turned upside down. Our like
Yeah.
kind of like the plan that we had for our lives, like the very loose plan that we had for
Yeah.
ourselves was just like upturned, and it I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. It really is so shocking to be just because you have plans. And
Mhm.
even though, like you said, it's kind of a loose plan, you still have a plan and
Yeah.
you have this vision of what your family's gonna look like
In an
and
instant,
it's not.
it's not the way that we.
I know, and when you said we just sat around in silence, and I was like, that is exactly because nobody knows what to say.
Mhm.
It's terrible. Like,
Yeah.
that's all there is to it.
We all just sat there. I do remember, like, talking with my mom. I don't know, we made some kind of arrangement that she was going to take Harrison,
Okay.
and so I had put off doing his laundry because I was gonna do it that weekend
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
before. So then I'm like, "Oh, man, I have laundry." So I'm like going into his room and getting his hamper, and my mom is telling me, "Don't do that, like, I'll do it," like but, like, just it felt like I still had to do, like, very menial tasks during the worst moment of my life. Like, life was still going on, and I still needed to, like, make sure that my son was taken care of. I still
Yeah.
needed to make sure that that he had clean underwear for
Yeah.
him to wear, and it was a really, really weird.
Yeah, juxtaposition
Yeah,
between
yeah,
just this, life-altering event
and
and
very basic event.
laundry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. What did Parker's parents say when you guys told them? I know that they were on vacation, or they
Yeah,
were out of town and they were
yeah. I don't remember a lot. I know he was the one who called them, and I remember that they were heartbroken too, and they were just across the country visiting some of their other kids
Oh,
that
okay.
live on the other side of the country,
Yeah.
and, they decided to just cut their trip short, and they were gonna
And
rush
head back.
home, and yeah, so they drove all the way out
Oh,
there. So they were gonna be driving all the way back. So they hopped in the truck, and they started driving back across the country as soon as they were able to.
yeah.
Um, but they were devastated as well, asked the same questions.
Why? Yeah.
Why?
Oh,
What happened? And, I'm sure people were thinking like, "Well, did Rebecca, like, did she fall? Like, did I have an accident? Did something?" And then
yeah.
we were like, "Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like, I've been good this whole time. Like, there was never like I just showed up to my appointment and they told me that she's gone." Like, it was hard, like, we're telling all of our family, like, we're just as confused as you. We don't know. We don't know what's.
Yeah. And that is hard when you just feel like you don't have any answers or anything.
Yeah.
Because, people want to fill in the blanks and find an excuse for things. When did the hospital finally call for you guys to come in?
I think it was like an hour after we got back from
Okay.
my appointment. They called. They told me, where to go, what to expect. And I don't remember the exact time that we went in. Like I said, like some of those memories, like some stand out so clearly, like the
Yes.
laundry, and then other things
You're
like
like, whatever.
going to the hospital, like
Mhm.
that is all so blurry. But I know that we waited a few hours, and then we showed up to the hospital, and they had like obviously already like the whole hospital staff, all the labor and delivery staff knew
New.
about our
Okay.
situation, and they had 2 nurses that were ready for me and that were
Oh, good.
ready to take. They took the best care of me, and they were so sensitive,
Good.
sweet. The way that the hospital approached our stillbirth was really, it really meant a lot. Just they were
That
they
they.
were kind. They weren't pushy. Um it just, I mean, as good as a stillbirth
Yes.
can
Of
go,
course.
I was very grateful for the way that they approached.
So you went in, and I've had a C-section with our daughter, and so I know that they usually take you back, and then
Mm.
the husband comes in a little bit later. Is that kind of the setup that they had you
Yeah,
do as
yeah.
well?
So you go in and you sit down on the hospital bed, and they have to do all the prep, like
Yeah.
putting the IV. I think that they take some of your blood. I have to do the ROGAM. I
Mhm.
think that they give you a second shot of ROGAM. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure, like right before you deliver. That's what happened with my last one. I don't,
Yeah.
but they do all the prep things. You have to drink like a stomach
Ye
acid neutralizer,
Yeah. Mhm.
all of that stuff. And so, Parker was with me for all of that, but then they do take me back. Um,
Get the nerve block put in,
yeah, like
probably.
the nerve, the spinal,
The spinal. Mhm.
yeah. And then once all of that, then that's when Parker came back,
Mhm.
and he was there for the C-section.
Okay. And how did that part go?
Um, I mean, it was really hard. It was
Yeah.
because my first C-section experience was, I mean, the first experience was scary because it was an emergency,
Right.
but it ended with,
Harrison. Yeah.
Harrison, and he, they pulled him from me, and he was screaming and
Yeah.
crying, um, and it was different this time, and the hospital, my doctor was so quiet, like they were only saying like
The minimal.
them, just communicating with each other, but in my other 2 C-section experiences, I can compare that, like this last one that I had, they were, kind of talking, catching up with each other. There was like a much lighter atmosphere,
Yes,
but
completely.
with Adrian, it was very somber, very quiet, and they were just, giving directions to each other, or explaining what they were doing, and the whole time Parker and I were waiting there, and we were just hoping that they were wrong, and that they'd pull her from me, and that we would hear her cry, and we didn't. And I told my doctor that later, and he said, "Yeah, I was really hoping too. I wanted that. I wanted that miracle, but we all knew that that's not what it was gonna be." But you still
Yeah.
have that,
Yeah.
like, irrational hope
Yep.
that just, like, please, like, let every single person be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, let her still be alive. So it was really just devastating to have her be removed from me, and to not hear her, and to know with, like, absolute finality that we had lost her.
Yeah. How big was she?
She was 7 pounds, 14 ounces.
Oh, she was big.
Yeah, she was really chunky, and it was a shock compared to my son,
Uh-huh.
who was 5 pounds, 4 ounces.
Yeah.
So we were like, "Wow, like, what was the difference there?" Like, I feel like I did the same things both
Yeah.
pregnancy, but she got so chunky.
Oh. And how long was she?
Oh, like 19 and a half.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
she was good
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
Oh. And then did you guys, name her then? When you guys
Yeah.
Had you guys been referring to her as Adrian up until that point already?
Yeah. Yeah, we knew that she was Adrian. We hadn't told with Harrison and Adrian, we had kept their names a
Just
secret.
between you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
just between Parker and I. So my parents, the rest of the family, they all found out that, she was named Adrian after we had her. But we always knew, like, that she was from pretty early on.
Yeah. How was the C-section though, just in general for you?
Yeah,
Did they stitch you up and everything
yeah, I
and
got
everything was
stitched
fine?
up, everything was fine. I did have an allergic reaction, so and I realized, like, so when you go into for an emergency C-section, they, like, just quickly, like, sanitize your skin
Mhm,
with,
mhm.
like,
Uh,
an iodine.
yeah, it's kind of a yeah.
Yeah, that's what they use. So, like, with Harrison, like, I didn't have any problems, but when it's a planned C-section, they prep you with called ChloraPrep, I think.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that. Never had ChloraPrep used on me before. So they used the ChloraPrep, and then a couple days later, I
Oh
I
no.
re I had I broke out in hives, like, all over my stomach.
Oh no.
And so in the
Oh.
midst of grieving Adrian, we were planning her graveside.
Yeah.
I had to find a dermatologist and get help with, like, this horrible allergic reaction
Oh.
on my skin, on top of just, like, being sore from the
Yes, of
C-section.
course.
Sore because my milk has come in,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. There's
having to,
no mhm.
block it off. So it was just like icing on the cake. Like, of
Yeah.
course I have an allergic reaction on top of all of this other terrible stuff.
Oh, I'm so sorry
But I
that
mean, the recovery of the C-section, it all went great.
yeah.
Minus the
But is that a couple days
rash.
later? How long did you stay in the hospital? Because they usually keep
Yeah.
C-sections in for a little bit longer.
Yes. I think that we were there for 3 days,
Okay.
and we were able to have Adrian with us for 2 days.
Oh,
They
wonderful.
have, like,
Kind of a cuddle cot
yeah,
or
yes,
a
cuddle cot, that's
okay,
what they're
they did.
called, yeah, I
Okay.
couldn't remember. Yeah, so, like, she was there, like, with the cooling pad with
Yeah.
her, and, um, I felt a little bit lucky because we had to stay in the hospital for a longer time that we had
That
2 whole days to be with her.
yeah, that is a long time, and I think that is super special. That's
Yeah.
yeah, because a lot of times they have a very specific, okay, it's only this many hours or
Mhm.
this is how long you get her. That is lucky.
Right.
So, they get her out. Did you guys have a plan of how after the C-section was going to look like? Did you want her wrapped up and brought to you guys, or how was that? I just
Yeah.
we've actually never had anybody do a C-section, I don't think, on our
Oh,
podcast,
wow.
and well, in the sense of like, yeah, I'm trying to think, maybe we have, and I'm just blanking it out, but
Yeah.
we just it's kind of rare because they usually just say vaginal birth is better, it's better
Right.
recovery and stuff, and so to have
Yeah.
somebody with a C-section is kind of unusual for us to talk to you. So, so did they take her and clean her up, or how did that look for you
Yep.
guys?
Yep, they cleaned her up a little bit, they weighed her for us,
Mm,
and, um, just the same as they do,
yeah,
like, with the live the same thing that they did with Harrison.
yeah,
They wrapped her all up, and they may have asked, like, "Are you in a place where you want to hold her right now?"
right.
And I did, I wanted her, and so, as soon as I was moved, like, from the operating table to
A
the
bed, yeah,
hospital bed,
hmm
they, like, immediately placed her in my arms, all wrapped up, and then from there, like, I was wheeled all the way back to the labor. I stayed on the labor and delivery floor. They
okay.
didn't move me to, like,
The recovery or whatever,
the
yeah,
mother-child rooms.
yeah,
They kept me in labor and delivery,
which
just to
is
be sensitive. Yeah.
also very nice.
Yeah,
That is
so that
also
I
very
didn't
nice.
have to hear all these
Yeah,
newborn babies crying
yeah.
while so, yeah, they immediately gave her to me, and, she was just I held her as much as I could for that whole 2 days.
Good, you should.
And Parker and I traded off.
Yes, of
He held
course,
her
I
a
guess.
lot too. Yeah.
What did she look like? Who did she look like?
I don't know. I think all of our kids are a good mix of us, and
Oh,
I think
uh-huh.
that she was a good mix too. I mean, she had features that reminded me of my son,
Oh,
like, she looks like her
yeah.
older brother a little bit. I think that she was a good mix. Just chubbiest cheeks, though. Harrison did not have chubby cheeks. And Adrian's cheeks just, they were like
Bulged.
jowls.
Oh.
Yeah, she was so chubby.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. So, had you guys thought about what you were going to do in that time? Any kind of memories that you wanted to make or things that you wanted to do to make sure that you got to spend some nice time with her?
I don't know. We were just going like literally minute by minute. Like
Mm,
we didn't know what to do. But, we were told by several people, like, take as many photos as you can.
okay.
And we did, like, we had the bereavement specialist come in and
Oh,
she took photos for us.
that's great.
Yeah. And then my sister-in-law contacted a photographer that she knew, and she sent this photographer out to us. She took photos of Adrian for us, and and then on top of that, we were taking pictures, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, so we had lots of pictures being
Good.
taken, and like in the moment, I remember thinking like, do I want all of this? Like, do I want like my worst, like
Day
the
on
worst day of my life?
record.
Yeah, like, but obviously, I'm really really glad that
Yeah.
was all documented in such detail because those were the only days that we had with her. But I remember in the moment thinking like, I don't want people in my face. I don't want cameras in my face. Like, I am miserable. I'm a wreck. Like, I don't want to be a part of these photos.
Yeah.
But I am grateful
Yeah.
that we did that. We just took lots of pictures, and that was we couldn't like really think of anything else to do. I mean, most of the time we just sat silence
Holding.
and numb.
Yeah. Having had no other loss like that in your family, like, you wouldn't have any ideas of what to do, like, I think
Yeah.
it's still just yeah, it's always surprising because that was one thing because we had not ever had a loss in our family that I
Mhm.
knew of, and we really did just we sat around and held our son, and that was it, like, a lot of people are like, "We read books and sang songs," and I was like, "Yeah, we didn't do
Well,
that."
I didn't do any of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was what it was, and that's fine because that is your experience that you had with her. You guys, what time did you deliver her that day?
It was in the evening. I
Okay,
think by the time that she came, it was like
in the evening, okay.
I know that the exact time is written down.
Yeah.
Remember?
Did you guys get any sleep that first night? Because
They gave me Ambien.
okay. I
So
was
I
gonna say,
did.
I can imagine you were just on a, like, so many
Yeah.
emotions, so much probably adrenaline pumping through your body
Mhm.
that you probably crashed after I personally would have
Yeah.
been like, "Okay, I'm done. I need to just
Right.
veg out."
I think that I probably would have fallen asleep without the Ambien too, because like you said, there was so much going on, and like I had just been through so much. On top of like all the emotional stuff, but just getting a surgery is
Yes. It's major surgery,
draining for your
everybody.
body. Yeah. And so, but my doctor did come in and say, I'm gonna prescribe you with some Ambien. Like, I just need you to sleep.
Yeah.
So I did get some sleep that night,
And Parker
and
stayed at the
Parker
hospital
stayed.
too, I'm
Yeah.
assuming on a pull-out couch or
Yeah, he
something.
slept on that little
Yeah.
the little chair bed that everybody
Ye
complains
Yep,
about.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's good fun. And then the next day you still had Adrian with you?
Mhm.
That's great. Were other people able to come and visit you? 'Cause we're still in the middle I guess it's not in the middle of the pandemic per se, but a little
Yeah.
bit kind of
It
on
was
the
like the
tail
tail end of
end.
it.
So were people able to come? Because
Yeah.
hospital policies were all over the place, it seemed like.
Right, and I don't know what the policy was. I feel like I have a vague memory of somebody saying, like, "Make an exception for you guys."
Well, yeah.
I don't I honestly don't know if that's what happened, but I have, like, some kind of memory there that
Yeah.
someone at some point said, "Well,
Mm,
we'll let you
y
guys have more people in."
yes, okay.
We didn't even know at first if we wanted family to come. At first I really didn't want anybody to
Oh,
come.
okay.
I felt like she's my baby. She's not anybody else's. Like, this is my time with her, and I don't want
Yeah.
anybody else here with her. But that very quickly changed because I realized that this is the only time that she's gonna be here, and I want people to know that she existed.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we did have our families come in and see her because it made it real for them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she became real for them. It wasn't just this baby that we had that nobody ever got to see.
Yep.
And a burial plot for her, but we see the headstone, but we never see the baby. It wasn't like that. Like we had, brothers and sisters-in-law and my brothers and our parents, and Parker's parents couldn't make it to the hospital before we left, but they were able to see her at the mortuary.
Oh, good. Okay.
So we did. We wanted our family to. We wanted them that she was our baby still, and that I wanted people to know what she looked like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted people to know she was real.
Yeah. That's what you do when you are a proud mom who just like, I gave birth to a baby. I want you to see her.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, that is so natural to do that. I think that's awesome that so much of your family got to come and be with her.
Yeah. We were really, really glad to have those moments with our family members were super special too. I mean, really hard, but super special. That was gosh, our family went through a lot during this time, and my husband's brother, he was fighting cancer.
Oh.
And he ended up passing away a little less than or a little over a month after we lost Adrian.
Oh, man.
And he came to the hospital to see her, and that was one of our last memories of him before he really, really started to
get really,
downhill.
really sick. Oh.
Yeah. And so it's a really special memory for us to have that moment with him and with Adrian. And it was right after Halloween, and I remember him bringing this flower pot. He brought flowers for us, and it was in like this pumpkin vase. And Harrison was obsessed with pumpkins at the time. Like kids on the autism spectrum get like super fixated on things and just like
gravitate towards it.
Yes, just like their favorite things are just like amplified by a million. And so Harrison was super into pumpkins, and my brother-in-law, his name was Sterling. He like purposely picked out this pot of flowers that was in a pumpkin for Harrison. He's like, I got this because I thought of Harrison and how obsessed he is with pumpkins. And that was my last memory of him really like being there and
capable
and capable of like still, we did see him after that a few more times, but he was not quite the same after that. So it was just a really special moment.
It's really
with him and with all of our family who came.
Yeah. I am always so grateful for that time because you're like, my baby was like had a baby and part of our family.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that they meet
your
kids,
their family, their cousins.
Yeah. In that time that you guys were in the hospital, did your OBGYN come in and talk to you guys? And was there any sort of indication when they were doing the C-section about what had happened, or just in their observation? Because I don't know if you got an autopsy or wanted to get an autopsy.
Right. So like right after I had the C-section, my doctor, I think he pulled Parker aside at first and then later told me the same thing, that everything looked really good. I didn't have any issue. There was nothing wrong with all of my
like
stuff in there, placenta, cord. He did mention it was a random fact, but it didn't play into Adrian passing at all. But he said that her cord was a little bit shorter than normal,
but
like
it wasn't wrapped around
it wasn't
anything.
No, like there was no accident with it. And he there was no way that like a slightly smaller cord could have like played into her passing. It was just kind of like a random that's like an interesting detail, but
that was all.
It doesn't. Yeah. So like right off the bat there was nothing, and we did pretty much every test that you could do outside of an autopsy.
Okay.
I don't remember what they're all called, but I know that we did like a genetic test.
Yes. Okay.
I had like my placenta tested.
Mm-hmm.
And everything came back normal.
Everything was fine.
Yeah. And so we were given the option of having an autopsy, and my OBGYN brought it up, and he didn't want to push us one way or another. But he did say that oftentimes it's pretty common for families to get an autopsy done and then to still not
have
to
anything.
not have any kind of answer. And so we decided pretty quick that we didn't want an autopsy. It didn't feel like, especially since everything else, like there was no indication that this would be like an issue like in later pregnancies for me. It felt like we didn't think that the autopsy would give us any information that
Gotcha.
would change things, I
Okay.
guess. So we chose not to do it. And I don't regret that. I don't think that maybe there would have been something come up. But again, like her 20-week anatomy scan was
Looked
perfect.
good too.
So yeah, we didn't do that.
Yeah. And I think you make the decision that makes the most sense for your family and what.
Right.
Yeah, because you just don't. I do the same thing. I was like, should we have done that? Because we essentially did like a partial autopsy, like you guys
Really?
did, tested the placenta,
Yeah.
tested like the cord, and did genetic testing, but it was not anything. Yeah, we didn't get anything much more than that either.
And it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
'Cause then you're left feeling like,
So
I don't know like, could I have done something
Right.
differently? Like, then was it me? Like, at some point, it just like this whole time, I'm like racking my brain, like, what did I do wrong?
Yes.
What did I do wrong? Because we can't figure this out. Like,
Yeah.
we can't find anything wrong with her. So what was it that I was doing wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was nothing, like logically, I understand that, like, I was just living my best pregnant life,
Yeah.
doing everything I was supposed to do, avoiding everything I was supposed to avoid. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is frustrating. Yeah, that when your mind goes into the why did this happen? What did I do wrong? Like
Right.
spiral.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so you guys were finally discharged. When the time came to give back Adrian, tell me how that went down.
So she was taken, like, the night before we left. So
Okay.
we, like, had her for 2 whole days. So, like, the night of the 2nd day, I guess,
Okay.
the mortician came, and my husband has a connection with the mortician that's
Okay.
in
Okay.
our
Just
hometown.
just
Yeah,
knows them
like, they're,
and
like, family friends,
okay.
and so, like, he came out himself and
Oh,
was, chatted. I didn't know him, but Parker knew him. So, like, I guess it was nice for Parker to kind of have that connection with somebody that he knew, and he was a very, very nice man, and he gave us, like, as much time as we wanted with Adrian before we ultimately had to hand her over, and he so gently, like, wrapped her, um, and then Parker wanted to go out, and Parker carried her out with the mortician to the
oh,
car.
he did.
Yeah, so he was able to place her in whatever kind of setup they had, like a box or, some kind of,
Like bassinet something or
yeah,
another. Okay.
something that, held her as the mortician took her to the mortuary. Um, but that was devastating for me to, um, like, have to hand her over, and it was, we saw her
Yeah.
a couple days later in the mortuary, and we had time with her there before we had the graveside.
Yeah.
But it's still hard. It's still hard handing over your baby that, you have such little time with anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, like, it was terrifying to me to, like, have to be in a hospital, still recovering from having a baby, but not having a baby there with me. And so they left the room, and I was sobbing. I was a hysterical mess, and I remember a nurse came down and just sat with me, and she put her arm around me, and everyone was just so kind, sensitive, and patient, and loving, and not everybody knew what to say or do, but just the fact that they weren't weird about it. They weren't.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Maybe they were uncomfortable, I don't know, but they didn't let me know that, like.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting
Yeah.
it. 'Cause like,
They wanted me and Parker to know that they were there for us, and that, I could feel, like, the devastation that everybody was feeling. Like, it was hard for everybody. It was It was a big deal for everyone. Yeah. And like, it's not like I wanted everybody to be sad. Not that at all, but just it was very touching to me that everybody cared.
Yeah. Because it touches them too. Like, I am sure that they don't see that all the time, and it is probably hard to watch that and have to participate in that as well.
Yeah.
As a caregiver, in a sense, as a nurse, as a MA, as a doctor.
And I've got to think that I mean, I'm not in their profession, but that's got to be one of the hardest parts.
Oh, yeah.
Of their job,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
completely. I agree.
Like it probably doesn't happen very often, but I feel like once is enough. Like once is, dealing with it myself is enough just once, but having to be a doctor or nurse and probably have to go through it several times in your career is draining. It's hard. I admire them for like, keeping it together, being professional and still giving me the care that I needed. And I've heard stories of other people's hospital experiences not being as ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel very blessed that it wasn't the case for me. But very sad that's not how it always is for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, some people just have never seen it before and they just don't know how to deal with it, and they're weird, like you said.
Yeah.
Your nurses were not weird about it, and others are.
Right.
Okay, so you spend the last day there, and is Parker with you the entire time? He didn't go home or anything or check on Harrison or anything like that
I don't
in that time?
Not to my memory. I think he stayed with me the whole
Okay. Yeah. Which is so nice because after a certain point, I was like, "Don't leave me. You can't.
Right.
You cannot go anywhere. We're stuck to the hip. I'm like, we're attached to each
Exactly.
other. I'm sorry. You can't leave." And so you guys discharged the next day and headed home. How was that? Did you guys immediately get Harrison back, or was it just you guys getting home?
He stayed with my parents for a little bit.
Okay.
And he was kind of traded off between grandparents because at that point my in-laws had come back home. And so my parents and my in-laws were very understanding that, I'm recovering from a C-section and then we're dealing, with the emotions of losing a baby. And so they were very great to offer to take Harrison for as much time as we needed. And he wasn't with them for super long, but we were given a few days, maybe a week, I can't remember, where it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
And that was hard because part of it was like I knew that I was not capable of showing up for Harrison in the way that he needed me to, and I wasn't capable of taking care of him. But I also needed him. Um, and I felt terrible that like I'm grieving the loss of one child who's died. While also it felt like I was neglecting my living child.
Yeah.
And I knew that that I was not capable of taking care of him, but that was really hard.
Yeah.
But, my parents and my in-laws were great at taking him for us. He loves his grandparents. And, like I said earlier, he didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, he just thought that he was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Going from
grandma to grandma.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were by ourselves for a little bit. But leaving the hospital without a baby is hard. I think that they wheeled me down in a wheelchair. Like, I don't know if they do that for vaginal births. I don't know. But, like, I was wheeled down in a wheelchair after I had Harrison all 3 times. But, like, you come down in the wheelchair and you kind of have people at the front desk. It's almost like they're ready to say, like, "Congratulations." Yeah. And for us, there was no baby. Like, nobody said anything, which was the way that I wanted it. I didn't want anybody saying congratulations.
Right.
But there was a family that was loading their car, like, right next to us, who had been discharged, like, right before, that did have a baby. And that was just like lucky them. They get to go home with their baby. And, like, just get back in the car in silence, just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Ugh. It's just been a few days and it just, like I said earlier, like, our whole life has just turned around.
You decided that you guys wanted to have Adrian buried, it sounded like.
Yes.
What was that like planning a funeral for your baby? That is the most terrible thing I wanna say. It's the most
Oh,
terrible thing.
yeah, I remember, like, sitting at the mortuary, we were shown the book of, like, uh it was basically just different flower sprays that we could choose from and different ideas. He showed us the size of coffin that she would be placed in, and, we had a little white teddy bear that we were gonna that we could put in there with her, and, I mean, I cried throughout all of that too. I didn't wanna do it. And it didn't feel like something that, you know, people our age should have to know,
Yeah.
like, how that process goes. Neither of us are even close to losing a parent yet. Like,
Yeah.
our parents still have lots of life left.
Yeah.
So, having to sit at a mortuary and plan a funeral was, like, not something that we ever thought we would have to do soon. So, it just felt weird, like, I should not be doing this. Like, I still feel like a kid.
Yeah.
I
And
don't I know nothing when it comes to planning a funeral, or I had no idea how much it costed. I had no idea how much caskets costed or burial plots, and
yeah.
so quickly, like, we learned all of that, like, the process of buying a burial plot, and then, Parker and I ended up just buying our plots at the same time
Yeah.
as Adrian's because we wanted to be close to her, and
Mhm.
it's like, what other 28-year-old has their burial plot bought?
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah,
It's so nuts, and you're
just
like, "This is surreal. Where am I?" Like,
right.
it's crazy.
Just so many experiences that you don't think
Yeah.
you'd have to deal with until so much later. So it was hard, but we just planned a very simple graveside.
Mhm.
We had just family and close friends show up, and I said something. I like didn't know if I was going to be able to or not, but I shared a few words, and we had um the bishop of our church ward.
Mhm.
So he came and he said some things, and my mom gave a prayer, and we just we cried
Yeah.
with our family and our
Good.
friends, and it was really special to have those people there with me, and that the morning of the graveside was the same day that I had to run into the dermatologist, and I remember, like, a couple days before, like, I originally called my OBGYN's
Yeah.
office telling them, "I've got this rash. I assume it's from the stuff they put on me."
Yeah.
And they said, "Okay, we'll contact this dermatologist." I contact the dermatologist, and the only day that they can get me in is the day of her graveside. And so they were wanting to schedule me at a later time in the day, and so I'm, like, sobbing to this poor secretary, like, "I can't come in later in the day because my daughter's funeral is that afternoon.
Oh,
Like, is there any way you can get me in the morning before, like, I need to get this done before her funeral, and I can't wait," because I had already gone several days with
right.
this
Just
horrible, horrible rash. And so that was, having to, like, explain to every person,
yes.
like, "My daughter just died."
And they're like,
And to have like, that exact face, like, just shocked, like,
"Yes."
I don't know what to do. So, all these weird little details, like, I said earlier, like, with the laundry, like,
Yeah.
I had to do laundry while dealing with the loss of my baby, and I have to make a dermatologist appointment
Mhm.
and go on the same day as my daughter's graveside, and it just feels like those 2 things,
Just
how are
don't
they existing in the same
yeah.
moment almost?
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't feel real.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Ah, I'm sorry that that happened on the state. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no, yeah.
But you guys had a nice graveside.
But we stayed for a little bit, we, chatted with friends and family, but then ultimately, Parker and I wanted to stay, after everybody had left, and so we were able to be there as they, like,
They
put
buried
the casket in
oh,
and then, filled it. And it's a small casket, it's a
yeah.
small hole in the ground,
It's
so we were
so
able to
little.
stay for the whole thing, and,
Uh-huh.
it was really important to Parker that, we kinda put, like, the first handfuls of dirt into her plot, and so we did that, and her cute little maybe that sounds morbid, cute little casket. It's a small casket. Maybe that's not the right word,
It is
but
so tiny. They're so small,
just a
and
tiny little casket with, we placed some flowers on top of it. It's lowered in, and then we we dropped the first 2 handfuls of dirt, and then the, what are they called? The
just
grave gra
the cemetery help
yeah,
the
the same
workers.
the
Yeah.
cemetery workers. There were 2 men that were, like, the burliest, like, gruffest, like, most rough and tough looking
Uh-huh.
guys that you've ever seen, and they were so, so sweet and so sensitive and just, like, so respectful, and they let Parker and I just sit there and watch as they did that, and then I think Parker kind of helped place, like, the sod back on top
Oh, really?
because, again, it's so small that, like,
Yeah,
it
it's
wasn't a
just
dirt
like
patch, like, they could just kinda, like, flip the
yeah.
grass back on top of it, and just these little details, like the cemetery workers being so sweet and kind, just spoke measures. It meant so much to us. Um, we were met with so much kindness and respectfulness and sensitivity by so many different people. We felt a lot of love.
Yeah, there was evidence of it everywhere. I
Yeah,
think that is really cool. Rebecca, thank you so, so much for telling us Adrian's story.
of course.
And I am so glad to know a little bit more about her life and that she was here and that she's a really important part of your lives as well. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.